Have you been sent? Do you understand the power of that little word, being sent? Now, if any of you have all ever worked for, I worked for some companies throughout my life, and when they would send me somewhere, they would pay for everything. They would take care of everything. I just had to be there in person to go. So if God has sent us, you know what that means? Just like with Jesus, He removed every obstacle, even though He went through the obstacles, but He never let anything stop Him. Why? Because Jesus was sent. So if God has sent you, He's already made reservations for you. He's already paid the bill for you. He's already took care of everything for you. So why are you worrying about your worldly needs? If you're not of this world, stop worrying about the things of the world. And get focused back on the power of God and what He's able to do. And in that last verse, I could go on, but I'm not. In that last verse, and Jesus said, not only am I praying for these disciples, but He said, I am praying for anyone that believed their words. This prayer is for us, church. This prayer is Jesus saying, I'm not giving up on you. So I don't care what the world's doing, because I'm not of this world. And the more foul they get, the more righteous we better get. The farther they get from God, the closer we better get to God. And remember, the greater the trial, the greater the blessing. Because there's always going to be trials and tribulation, but Jesus put it greater than I ever could have. He said, be of good cheer. He said, there's going to be trials and tribulations of this world. But Jesus said, I have overcome the world. That takes me back to that point. Jesus prayed that prayer. He said, even as me and my Father are one, I want them to be one too. So here it is. We'll recap real quick. God is able. And if you believe God is able, you are no longer looking at what you can do, but you are pushing everything over and saying, God, I know you're able, and I'm going to be fully persuaded that you're going to take care of everything against that day. So we can't hold anything back from God. Every part of our life has to be open and transparent to God. Not to everybody in the church. You don't need to call anybody today and say, you can't believe what I did. No. Get yourself away alone with God and let all your deepest, darkest secrets, your hurts, your failures, and say, God, I'm standing before you transparent. And let God do it. Secondly, remembering Jesus said, we are not of the world. So if your whole approach is trying to get everything done through a worldly way, you're never going to prosper. Because He said no weapon formed against us which should prosper. So no weapon, no forces will prosper against us. But how do we get to that point? We have to rise up in faith. And we have to stand. When it looks like all hope is gone, we just have to stand. Because as you study your book, much greater people than you and I have suffered much greater persecution and trial, and God brought them through. Lastly, God is setting us apart for such a time as this. So as you see the world go farther into depravity, as you see the world farther separating themselves farther from God, God is saying, I am setting you apart from this. He said, so I can empower you. So as they begin to flee, they're going to be drawn back. And we will be the ones to give them the message of hope. And lastly, Jesus said, just as He was sent, He said, I send you into the world. And if God's sending you, don't worry about it. If it's God's deal, He'll pay the bill. So stop worrying about all your worldly things. Just say, here I am, Lord. My prayer from this point on is going to be draw closer unto you. My prayer is from now on is, God, I want more of your power. I want more of your gifts. I want to be able to understand the authority I'm walking in. I'm going to pray for spiritual gain. And if I do that, and I decrease, and I allow God to increase, you're going to find out many things that you've seen as impossible or mountains standing before you. You're going to look down and there was nothing more than a molehill. You're going to rake them off with your boot and you're just going to keep on walking. Put all of the perspective back where it belongs. If we will do that, we will no longer live defeated, but we will live in victory, and that's why Jesus died, so that we can have the ultimate victory. If I can get my lady